As Tony, who read our readings today and made that video that you just watched, said, mothering is not just about biology, but an act of kindness and love, and trying to protect those that we care about from dangers and from difficulties. Towards the end of her video, Tony mentions Martha, Mary, Ruth and Hannah as women from the Bible who are examples to those in her video. And as she spoke to Sandra, Anne and Alison in preparation for that video, Tony asked them about their favourite women in the Bible. And Martha, Mary, mother of Jesus, Hannah, Ruth, Naomi and Orpah were those that were named. Those biblical women, and all the other biblical women that aren't named by those few people, all have their own unique story, like we do. And yet they are inspirational to women today. Why do I comment on that? Well, Hannah is a mother who cannot have children and suffers immensely at the cruelty of other women because of it, despite the support of her husband. Naomi is a mother who loses her husband and then her 2 children and is left with both daughters-in-law. Orpah listens to Naomi when she asks Orpah and Ruth to leave her so that she will not be reminded of her missing sons. But Ruth, of course, does not listen and accompanies Naomi to Bethlehem and eventually marries Boaz, providing Naomi with a surrogate grandchild. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was an unmarried teenage mum. And we know little about the family life of Mary and Martha, actually, other than they had a brother called Lazarus. They could have been young orphans, not yet married, older widows, or part of a Jewish sect that chose celibacy and singleness. We just don't know. But yet, Martha was named by one of the ladies that Tony spoke to as being someone that they identified with, mostly because she was a practical person, and that's exactly how this person sees themselves, especially when they considered that the people Martha was serving were not family members, but people within the community. The point? Mothers come in all shapes and sizes. They don't live in ideal family situations. The world isn't ideal, is it? Some mothers have their own children and some don't. Some have partners and some don't. Yet they all try to put their own issues to one side in order to care for others. And sure, sometimes their own past trauma or their own issues are so big that that's almost an impossible task, and they end up needing help. But all mothers, all women, try and want what is best for those that they care for. And yet, if, like me, you've watched the news this week, you will have been shocked by the murder of Sever Everard, which has sparked many conversations about the issues still faced by women today. Everard didn't have any children of her own, I don't think, but was described as popular, beautiful, strong, and incredibly kind by her family and friends. Kind being that word which links us back to the definition of mothering that Tony introduced us to in her video. Most women are mothers in one way or another. And if, as I am saying today, all or most women are mothers, then the way they are treated by society is horrendous. Did you know the Equal Pay Act was introduced in 1970? Now, that might not seem like such a long time ago to some of you, but to put it into perspective, it's not only before I was born, it is the year my mother was born, so almost 2 generations ago. 50 years on, it should be something that we've moved past and forgotten about, moved on to another problem, something else that needs sorting out. But no, the gender pay gap still exists, women are still not as safe as men in the streets, and frankly, I think that is disgusting. What is going on? As most of you will know, the Bible says, honour your mother and father. And while families in biblical times were most likely more extended than the way we understand them now in this country, they would have found it much easier to extend that word mother to all women in society. And it still happens in some parts of the world today, with older women especially being called mother, regardless of relationship, and younger women often being called sisters. So women, I think you are blooming marvellous, whether you think of yourself as a mother or not. If men had to deal with half the crap you have to deal with, I think there would be an awful lot more moaning and complaining. If you're wondering why on earth I'm talking about this today, it is because we have to do something about it. All of us. Not just women, not just those men that go around attacking people, because 9 out of 10 men, let's face it, are probably not going to attack a woman. But they do have a role to play. They need to stop letting things pass. They need to challenge beliefs, comments, behaviour before it gets to that level of attacking. Because if, as Christians, we are trying to build God's kingdom here on earth, then surely that not only means making everyone safe, but making them feel safe too. Men, call out bad attitudes towards women. Challenge your mates. Don't let them objectify women. Don't, when things happen, blame the victim. It is not acceptable to say, she shouldn't have been on her own. What was she doing out at that time of night? Or she was asking for it. Just look at what she was wearing. At no point when somebody is attacked is it the fault of the victim. Why shouldn't women be allowed to go out when we wouldn't think twice of it? We as men are privileged and rarely have to think about where we're going, when we're going, and how we're going to get there. But because of the way the world currently is, women seem to be hardwired to have to ask these things in their brain. Pre-COVID, I could decide on a whim to go almost anywhere, anytime, and not really have to worry about it. And it saddens me that my sisters, that my mothers, that my female friends can't do the same. I'm not going to go on about all the different ways that men can help, because it's been done elsewhere. Go online, watch the news, read a book, do some research. Men, most importantly, educate yourselves on the challenges that women face, even in those, or especially in those things that we would consider ordinary and wouldn't give a second thought to. And women, please help us learn. You have a role too. Keep challenging us. Keep making us uncomfortable. For no one should be comfortable until everyone can be comfortable. I wish I could finish there, but I can't, because we need to take a little bit of time just to think specifically about church. The biblical examples of mothers that we heard about show us that family life has always been complicated. And yet the church still seems to idealise the notion of one way of being family, of being a mother, and that you need a father and you need some children. Well, you do not. It is one way to do it, and is perhaps how things are intended to be. But God has used women in polygamous marriages, single mums, old mums, you name it. Women from every background in every situation. God has loved and used and cared for. So let me ask you, if an abused woman walked into your church and confided in you, would you know what to do? This is where I have to say that this is the live end of safeguarding, if you like. Safeguarding isn't just some policy that we have to have that sits in a folder on the wall or goes up on the notice board that nobody really reads. It is a statement that says everyone matters. It is a way of saying we are going to do our best to make sure that everybody not only is safe, but feels safe. We need to be aware of what we can do as men and women, that all women, all mothers, may be honoured and cared for. And it's really important because as the church, we are often viewed by others outside of the church as people who speak for God. It's a bit presumptuous and false, but we do have to be aware that that is the expectation others place on us. We have to try our best. If a mother walks in with a child, how is she treated in church? In a minute, I'm going to read you a reflection I found in a book called Dirt, Mess and Danger by Glendon Macaulay, published by Wild Goose Publications, which asks about breastfeeding in church, which I have to admit, yes, makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But I am okay with being uncomfortable. Breastfeeding is the most natural thing in the world and is what both the mother and the child need to do. Get on with it. I'll live with my discomfort, which is more about not quite knowing the etiquette of whether to speak to you, or where to look or what not to do. I'm pretty sure I know where not to look, however. I should add, if, as a mother, you'd like to go somewhere else for breastfeeding, that's fine, as long as it is your choice and society isn't making you. Why do I say making you? Well, because I know, and it's not to do with breastfeeding, I know that a mother has walked out of church services in our circuit because she has been looked at and tutted at for letting her children be themselves. Stop it. Jesus said, "Let the little children come unto me." We all meet God as we are. Why do we pile extra unnecessary pressure on mums and children by asking them to be something they're not in church? Let the children wander, cry, shout, and ask questions. I promise you that the person leading the service doesn't mind. And if they do, well, they can take it up with me. Mothers have a hard enough job already. Let's try to find ways to help them relax when they're with us. Let's find ways to allow them to be themselves with God, to come before God as they are, tired and worn out, excited by the fresh-facedness of being a mother. I don't know. I'm not a mother. I never will be. But anyway, here's the reflection, because I think it says some of the things I'm trying to say a lot better than me. Where do you stand on a mother breastfeeding her child in the church? She asked. Some of them are muttering. There had been a baptism with lots of visitors that day. Surely you already know the answer to that, I replied. Is a woman's breast such an abomination in the eyes of its maker? Should a hungry infant be denied the satisfaction it needs and craves for? Is the sight of human flesh and the sound of human sucking and the mess of a dirty nappy so hideously unacceptable that the God of heaven and earth puckers his lips and averts his eyes in disapproval, disgust, and distaste? Flesh of our flesh and bone of our bone, he was puking and shitting, bleeding and needing, wanting and getting, his mother breastfeeding, her life-giving love to her child in the form of a liquid. When the woman with a permanent period touched him, did he think he should turn her away? When a beggar with lice stood before him, did he turn up his nose at the smell? When a leper whose fingers had gone, who had been outcast and shunned for so long, looked for acceptance so he could belong, was he rejected, despised, and dismissed? Or was he welcomed, embraced, and even kissed? Does the one who once sucked at a breast avoid dirt, mess, and danger? The world is a messy place. Motherhood is a messy thing. Not just literally, but in terms of having to support not only themselves as a mother, but also the child, those that they care for, in the mess of the world. Not only do they have their own issues as mothers to deal with, but those of their children and the concerns of keeping them safe, shaping them into people who will thrive in the world. So women, whoever you are, whatever your background, however many children you do or don't have, whether you're single, married, divorced, or widowed, you are bloody marvellous and you are loved by God. And so as the church, we will do better. We must do better. We love you. As we recognise the messiness of our world, we sing of the Holy Spirit who is living and working inside us all. Singing the faith number 393. She sits like a bird, brooding on the waters.